Welcome to Everyday Tarot, your daily dive into the divine wisdom of the tarot. I'm your host, Camille A. Saunders, and today I'm talking about a self-love tarot spread. Whether you're a seasoned tarot reader or just starting to explore, this podcast offers daily insights, intuitive messages, and practical advice drawn from the cards. Each episode is designed to help you connect with your inner wisdom, find clarity in your decisions, and tap into the energy of the universe. Tune in every day, Monday through Friday, for fresh perspectives and empowering guidance from the tarot as interpreted by me. The best way to support the podcast right now is to listen daily, rate, review, and to follow or subscribe in your chosen podcast app. The next best way is to check out my Patreon at patreon.com/everydaytarot. The link is in the show notes if you want to check that out. And you can always go to my website, CamilleASaunders.com/everydaytarot for all the latest information related to the podcast and to find images of the cards that I pull. If you're local to the Greater Puget Sound, I have some upcoming events I'd love to see you at. Our next meetup of the Let's Talk Tarot meetup group event will be April 6th at 11:15 a.m. We're meeting at the Haunted Farmers Market in South Tacoma. You can use the meetup link to check out details on that event. And then on this coming Sunday, the 23rd, I am speaking for Evergreen Hearts in their Polyamory Talk series about being pagan and polyamorous. If you're interested in attending that event, you can use my discount code PAGAN to get a free ticket. And again, link for that will be in the show notes and on my website. I would love to see you there talking about the overlap of pagan and polyamory. All right. So yeah, welcome to season 5 of the podcast. We're really getting into it now. In this season, I'm talking all about common tarot spreads. I'm going through 13 different tarot spreads, one per episode, and walking you through an example of what it looks like to do them. If you haven't listened to my other seasons yet, go ahead and check those out. In the first season, I introduced tarot through talking about oracle versus tarot cards, myths of tarot, how to find a deck, reading for yourself versus others, and much more. In seasons 2 and 3, I went through the major arcana and the 4 suits, one per episode. And in season 4, I talked all about tarot in pop culture and examined representations of tarot in video games, TV shows, movies, and more. And like I said, today I'm talking about a self-love tarot spread. I actually have a migraine today. I'm feeling a little bit better right now after taking some medication, but I know I need a little self-love today. So yeah, I got this spread from, I think they're called Interrobang Tarot. I'll have the link to their website on my website and in the show notes. And it looks like they created the spread around Valentine's Day in 2016 as a simple self-love tarot spread for that time of year. And like I said, I thought this would be appropriate today as I'm trying to be kind to myself. And a self-love spread seems sort of nice. So this one is a 4-card spread. So the placement of the cards is there's number 1 is above, number 2 is left, number 3 is right, and number 4 is the bottom. So it's sort of like a diamond shape. Again, I'll have the image for that on my website if you want to look at it, and then I'll have the cards that I actually pull on my website as well, so you can see those as I go through them. And so the questions that they're looking at are for the number 1 placement is something to love about myself. What's so great about me? What am I getting right in life? What makes me special? And what can I love about myself right now? Number 2 is where can I be patient with myself? Number 3 is where can I be kinder to myself? And number 4 are energies and strategies to draw on. So again, this is fairly simple. I've talked about 1-card spreads. I've talked about a card a day. We did a past, present, future, like a 3-card spread, a full moon one the other day that was a little more complicated. And then this one is a 4-card spread. So go ahead and grab your deck. And I'm going to do so as well, and we'll dive in and see what the cards have to say today. All right, so I'm going to be reading from the Sasorabito Tarot deck by Stasia Barrington. This was actually my first deck. I wanted sort of a clear, simple deck today, and this is my most like the Rider-Waite-Smith sort of traditional deck. If you want to hear my first deck story, I'll link it in the show notes. It was the second episode of my podcast, but where I talk about how I find this deck, how it called to me, and how I sort of got into tarot if you're interested. All right. Okay, so I have my 4 cards face down right now in the, again, like 1 is the top position, 2 is left, 3 is right, and 4 is the bottom position in a sort of diamond shape. And I'm going to go ahead. Okay, so question 1, and again, as I'm thinking about it, this is about something to love about myself. What's so great about me? What am I getting right in life? What makes me special? And what can I love about myself right now? I pulled the 3 of Cups. So just looking at the card right now, it gives good energy. It's like, at least on this particular card, it's like 3 femme presenting people, all sort of like hugged in a row. There's like a sort of rainbow at the top of the card. There's like hearts, almost like tattoos on a couple of the folks' arms, and they all have like eyes closed and they're hugging or embracing, sort of like one behind the other. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and read what it says in the deck guidebook about this. So something to love about myself right now, what's so great about what's going on, what makes me special. Friendship, community, and celebration. This is the friendship card representing all of the awesome positive energy that comes from being part of a group. This can be a close-knit group of friends or a larger community, but the positive feelings are the same. Feeling like you belong, feeling loved, secure, supported, and cherished. The 3 of Cups represents trust, being a good neighbor, and the two-way street and taking care of one another. All right, so it sounds like what I'm doing well right now is friendship, community, and celebration, and that I'm really appreciating that. Right now I'm thinking about today, I'm actually creating a networking group in my local community, an in-person networking group with some folks. We call it the Connect, Grow, Thrive community. And I was just on a call right before this with 2 women that I'm starting the group with earlier. Feel free to email me if you're interested, CamilleASTherapy@gmail.com if you want to join our group. We're going to be meeting in person in Sumner in the sort of larger Tacoma area in Washington State. And yeah, figuring out how we can help each other connect, grow, and thrive in our businesses. So that's one of the things I'm thinking about. I also today had co-working with a friend of mine that I've been doing sort of virtual co-working with for the last, I think, 3 years. We met each other in an online business community, a holistic business community, and we found out that we live, fairly near each other. They live a little north of Seattle and I live a little south. And we're actually meeting up this Friday in person to do our like quarterly planning for our businesses. So we meet every week for an hour and we both sort of check in with each other, and then we spend some time working on some of the things we need to work on in our own businesses and sort of have that accountability for each other. And then in this year we started talking about how it would be helpful to have some accountability in meeting in person to do quarterly planning for our businesses and sort of keep each other on track. We're going to meet at a cafe and spend a couple hours going through, what our plans are for the year, how we can make progress on that, supporting each other, sort of helping each other, bolster each other, that kind of thing. Shout out to Doris. And also Izzy, once you get back into the area. So yeah, I'm thinking right now it's interesting just on this card, it sort of has like 3 presenting people, and I'm in these like 2 other like, chats that I did today, each with like 3 women in them. And so this card's really calling out like that aspect of this to me today, especially since I had those calls today. So that's really nice. Okay. So in the second position for the card, this card is all about where can I be more patient with myself? What am I rushing myself to do? Where am I in a great hurry to grow that I need to take a breath and slow down? And in what areas of my life am I being too much of a perfectionist? Ooh, interesting. Another 3. So I pulled this time the 3 of Pentacles. Okay. And so if we think about it, Pentacles are about like earth energy, groundedness, material goods. So, reading from the deck guidebook, it says teamwork, cooperation, and communication. This card illustrates the value of working together. Communication is key in setting expectations, organizing resources, following a schedule, and completing projects. I illustrated this card with a blueprint-like model of a pyramid, with the hands of three separate people taking part in the building of an enterprise with substance. Specializing and combining forces with other experts can result in an outcome that is more than the sum of its creator's contributions. So very interesting. Also with three, like I said, and also sort of a lot of what I was just talking about, sort of creating this new networking group, sort of holding myself accountable with other folks. I'm also contracting work with a sex therapist group practice in my area because that's something that I'm learning more about and becoming certified in, and I'm still sort of in supervision as a therapist and taking on clients with that. So finding support there and having they're sort of getting me new clients, taking that on. So yeah, I'm just thinking a lot about sort of collaboration, and it sounds like maybe I've been, putting a lot of pressure on myself to do things all on my own. I know I definitely did that in my first couple of years of business, especially because I had some sort, a bit of like trauma around like not feeling like I could rely on other people or like I was feeling taken advantage of. And so now sort of finding ways to actually intentionally collaborate with people and to feel safe and secure, to sort of get consistent income coming in, and also just, yeah, being open to collaboration when we sort of, as a way to help each other like grow. And so sort of this card's telling me, right, I've maybe been rushing in some of my own business stuff, and that maybe I need to sort of, be methodical, be intentional with my collaborations, like I said, with sort of these, with things coming together, and to not be in such of a hurry about it, or just allowing myself to like take the time it takes to build a great foundation of, again, sort of collaboration or cooperation with other folks, and that finding the right people and the right situations at the right time is like the most important part. All right. So for the third card, this is the one on the right. It says, where can I be kinder to myself? Do I treat myself the same way I treat others? What unimportant stuff have I been beating myself up about, and how can I treat myself better? All right, I pulled the Seven of Wands reversed. When I just look at the card, there's like six wands that kind of look like sticks coming out from like the bottom right of the card. And then there's like one wand that's in the middle, and then on the top of it is like an axe head, or like it looks like a hatchet. And then there's like a little spider critter down in the bottom left. So it sort of gives like nature. It sort of, I'm like looking at it thinking like, oh, where am I like being maybe too, I don't know, aggressive? Again, if we're thinking about being kinder to myself, where am I being really hard on myself? Where am I being very, right, sort of precise, but in a maybe, what would be the right word? Like, again, thinking about like a hatchet or an axe and like the heavy handedness of it, or the sort of precision cuts that it makes. Like sometimes maybe perhaps I'm being a little too cutting of myself. So now I'm going to look at what it actually says in my deck guidebook, but that one was just sort of calling to me to look at what the card itself actually looks like at first. Okay, so I'm going to read, so again, this is the Seven of Wands reversed. So I'm going to read the upright definition in this tarot deck guidebook, and then there is a reversal definition in here, and then I'll sort of interpret what I think this means. And again, I'm thinking about, where can I be kinder to myself? How can I treat myself better? What have I maybe been beating myself up about? And it says, this is a card of tension and suggests courage and strength to stick to your guns. It's about holding ground, taking a stand, and showing resolution. I've shown one of these 7 wands as having become an axe, as becoming and displaying its own power. Notice, however, that the axe is not currently chopping. Stand your ground, but withhold violence until absolutely necessary. I threw in the spider because I thought it was cute. That's what the tarot deck author says. Okay, so thinking about the reversal sort of definition of this, it says, being an axe, you are on the defensive and see enemies and conflict at every turn, or are feeling especially vulnerable to criticism or judgment right now. So again, in the context of thinking about where can I be kinder to myself, I also, I guess, had my own therapy this morning, and there are definitely some things that I've been sort of judgmental about of myself, or that I've been noticing falling into certain patterns and then getting really frustrated that I'm not able to set better boundaries or sort of assert myself or advocate for myself in these scenarios, and coming away from it feeling like, even sometimes when I'm in the situation, it doesn't feel that bad. But then later, when I'm really thinking about it and how it impacted me, or taking on other people's like emotions or burdens, that is where sort of like the heaviness is coming in. So it sounds like just sort of taking things with, like, I want to say like a grain of salt. I don't know why that's coming to mind right now, um, but yeah, just sort of feeling maybe vulnerable to judgment. It sounds like maybe even my own judgment. So maybe, right, being cutting myself some slack and saying, right, like, we're all on a journey. We're all on a journey of learning and growth. And so recognizing sort of what we're doing is the first step, and then sort of there's like recognizing in the moment. It's sort of the next one, and then later on, it's sort of like maybe being able to prevent or advocate for yourself in the moment. Is sort of like the journey, and so I feel like I'm sort of in the like middle to end part of that in some ways in my life, which is very nice because I'm recognizing it now. But sometimes I think, just like sort of the other card was saying, what can I be more patient with myself about? Sometimes I have very high expectations for myself, or that I'm like, oh, because I'm a therapist and I know these things, I should just be able to prevent myself from like doing anything dumb, or like, or that I should, because I know about boundaries and I teach about them, that means I need to be perfect with my boundaries all the time. Which is just not true, right? Like, I can recognize that when I sort of zoom out from the situation, and I would never put that pressure on someone else. But then again, when it's myself, right, I'm like, oh, well, I know better, or like, oh, well, I literally have training in this. Why can't I? And then there's a little bit of that sort of judgment. So it sounds like I'm being called to, yeah, be a little nicer to myself, not be so critical. And then especially with this sort of context, like I was saying, like, part of why I'm doing the self-led tarot spread today is because I got in late last night, from traveling, like 11:30 p.m., and didn't get like super restful sleep, and I've just had a migraine today, not feeling great. So just trying to recognize, right, my own limits and not sort of force myself to do too much, even though I am here, recording a podcast in the evening. But I also am trying to honor my commitments, right? Okay. So for the fourth and final card of the spread, it's the bottom card. In the spread, it says energies and strategies to draw on. So again, okay, if we're thinking about this context of how do we, love ourselves better, and how do we practice this? What energies can I bring in, and what strategies can I use to foster a better relationship with myself? I pulled the star. I love the star card. As an Aquarius, the star is associated with the Aquarius in like an astrological sense. Um, I actually, I guess not last weekend, but the weekend before, I I went to the haunted farmers market in South Tacoma in my area, which is just sort of like a witchy, like Halloween all year market of vendors, and there's food trucks, and everyone there is sort of witchy, or at least sells stuff that is, and it was super fun. And I actually picked up a necklace with a star card on it because it is one of my favorites. So, okay, let's read in the Tarot deck guidebook what this is about. But before I do that, so in the Sacerobito Tarot deck, the star card is very um, like space like. So it shows sort of like what I'm going to depict or imagine as sort of like the Milky Way in the middle. Then there's sort of like a black background with a bunch of stars. And then there's like an astronaut like connected via like a wire or something that's sort of like floating around in space, but you see they're connected in one part of the card, and then we see like their connection piece on another side of the card too. So it's about sort of, when I'm looking at it, it's like floating, right? You're in space in this sort of like never ending area, right? Space goes on and on and on. But also, right, you're connected, right? You're physically connected to your spaceship or to, again, like the International Space Station or whatever you're working on, because otherwise you're just going to float off into space forever, which is a little scary. So again, what energies can I bring in? What strategies can I use to foster a better relationship with myself? And in the Tarot deck guidebook, it says that this card is the astronomer, the navigator, the explorer. The star is full of hope, joy, lightheartedness, and free flowing love. It is optimistic, trusting, excited, and inspired. The explorer is open minded, serene, and generous. As the card directly after the tower, the star represents the calm after the storm. And there's actually a quote associated with this card in this deck. So I think most of the major arcana cards in this deck have a quote, and it says, "What would you ask for if you knew the answer was yes?" So like said, sort of like this like infinite possibilities like aspect of this card, which is really indicated when I look at the actual image, right? It's like you're sort of connected again, like to your spaceship as an astronaut in space, but then there's also this sort of like never ending, ever going space, right? Like the stars and everything, and we have our own galaxy, and there's more beyond it, and it's very hard to like intellectually comprehend. Um, but anyway, so when I think about this, it's sort of like what energies can I bring in? It sounds like sort of this like hope, optimism, and sort of that anything is possible, right? How can I use strategies to foster a better relationship with myself? It sounds like part of that is like allowing myself to dream, right? Allowing myself to not sort of restrict by what I think maybe is currently possible, but to dream and imagine what it would be like the quote says, like, what would you do if you knew that you were going to succeed? What would you ask if you knew the answer was yes? Right? It just allows us to think a little bit differently about goals or things like that. And I'm really going to be keeping that in mind as like I said, I'm going into like a quarterly planning session this later this week with my friend and colleague to sort of keep imagining bigger for myself and to not kind of get stuck in again sort of the perfectionist aspects or like I'm in a rush to do this or like why haven't I done this yet, right? Sort of beating myself up about it, but just allowing, right? And just saying, like, oh, maybe I haven't done it yet because it hasn't been the right time, right? Maybe it's not that I don't have the motivation, it's just that something has been telling me that even though I have all my documents pulled together, it's not quite the right time to submit that proposal yet, or I'm not quite ready to, know when I'm going to, or like I don't maybe have the energy to kind of like go through with that proposal right now, or if, even though I have all of the creative ideas, um, that again, maybe it's sort of like if I were to force it through, or just send it all in right now as is, like maybe I wouldn't get it. And so there is this sort of aspect of like allowing things to happen in the way that they do. And like I said, in just the same way that I'm creating this podcast right now, even though I've sort of had like a not great like day, just feeling not like physically wise. Sorry, like my words are going now. Um, but that there is this aspect of like, okay, right, I'm going to honor my commitments. I'm going to keep up with the podcasts. I'm going to record even though parts of my day have been rough or I took a nap or, I wasn't able to do some things, that still sort of showing up in the way that I can. And like I said, I sort of tailored this episode today to kind of honor where I'm at, which is I need a little self love today. So yeah, I'd be curious, what your cards showed up as, if there were any similarities or differences with the full moon spread that I talked about in last episode. I actually did that spread with some friends, and it was super fun to just talk about like what cards came up for us. Again, we had some similarities. We had some same cards actually, even though that one I think was a 6 card pull. This one's 4, so, potentially less. But yeah, like what sort of similarities to the cards that you have? Did you get out your deck and sort of do this right now? Maybe you're going to pull it up later when you get home from work or something like that, and pull your own tarot spread. But yeah, tarot spreads can just be a really fun way to check in with yourself. And that's why I'm doing this whole season right now, is sort of talking about different spreads, right? And sort of the different avenues you can go down timing wise, or how to kind of know what spread to do at what point. All right, and links for the tarot decks I talk about will always be in the show notes and on my website if you'd like to look at them or purchase them. And thanks for joining me today on Everyday Tarot. Just as a reminder, the podcast comes out daily, Monday through Friday for all of 2025. All right, see you soon. Bye bye.